My name is Aliko Dangote, and I am the Group President and Chief Executive of Dangote Group. At the Dangote Group, we are committed to adding value to key sectors of the economy, including infrastructure, agriculture, logistics, and energy. Our goal is to drive backward integration and energy self-sufficiency, thereby creating thousands of jobs, improving export activities, and saving significant foreign exchange for the country.
The year is 2025. You're standing in the middle of a boardroom that smells like mahogany and unfiltered power. Outside the window, the sprawling chaos of Lagos traffic is just a silent moving picture. Inside, the air is cold, refrigerator cold. Sitting at the head of the table is a man who needs no introduction. Aliko Dangote, the richest black man on earth, the cement king, the man who built a refinery so big it can be seen from space. When you look at him, you see success. You see a net worth that fluctuates like a volatile crypto chart but always lands in the billions. You see the man who conquered cement, sugar, salt, and now oil. But what if I told you that the road to that $15 billion empire is paved with the corpses of dead companies? What if I told you that behind the glossy magazine covers and the Davos handshakes, there is a graveyard of factories that went silent, airplanes that never flew, and products that Nigerians simply refuse to eat? We love to worship the billionaires. We love to pretend they have the Midas touch, that everything they touch turns to gold. But Aliko Dangote doesn't have the Midas touch. He has the survivor's touch. He has failed. Spectacularly, brutally, and expensively. Today, we are going to dig up the bodies. We're going to walk through the ruins of 5 massive businesses that Aliko Dangote started, poured millions of dollars into, and then shut down. From a textile empire that vanished into thin air to an airline that never left the tarmac, this is the story of the losses you don't see on Forbes. Welcome to the dark side of the Dangote empire. 1. Dangote Textiles, the 6,400 job massacre. Let's rewind the clock. Imagine it's 1989. You're in Kano, the beating commercial heart of northern Nigeria. The air is thick with dust and the sound of commerce. This is before the insecurity, before the decay. This is when Kano was the Manchester of West Africa. At this time, Aliko Dangote is already a wealthy trader. He's the guy you go to if you want sugar, rice, or cement imported. But Aliko has a problem. He's tired of being a middleman. He's tired of just moving boxes from a ship to a warehouse. He wants to build. He wants to be an industrialist. So he looks around. What is the hottest industry in Nigeria in the late 80s? It's not oil, it's not tech, it's textiles. At this point, the textile industry is the largest employer of labour in Nigeria outside the government. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs. The United Nigerian Textiles Limited, UNTL, is booming. The markets are flooded with locally made prints. Dangote thinks, I can do this better. He goes big, because he is Dangote, and he doesn't do small. He establishes Dangote Textiles Mills Limited in Kano, and the Nigerian Textile Mills Limited in Lagos. This isn't a small tailoring shop in Yaba, this is massive industrial warfare. He hires thousands of people. He imports the best machinery money can buy. The looms are spinning, the cotton is flowing, and the money is supposed to follow. For a few years it looks like a genius move. The factories are humming. If you walked into the Kano plant in the early 90s, you would have seen a city within a city, shifts running 24/7. The noise of the looms was the sound of money, but then something happens, something that every Nigerian business owner knows deep in their bones. The Nigeria factor. First, the power goes out, and it stays out. You see, running a textile mill requires massive amounts of electricity. You can't run industrial looms on a I pass my neighbour generator. You need the grid. But NEPA, now PHCN Discos, decides to do what they do best: disappoint. So Dangote has to buy diesel. Now imagine you are the CFO of this textile mill. You are looking at your spreadsheet. Your competitor is a factory in Shanghai, China. The factory in Shanghai pays pennies for electricity. They have a government that subsidizes their cotton, they have roads that don't eat their trucks, and here you are in Kano, burning millions of naira on diesel just to keep the lights on. your cost of production skyrockets. But that's not the killer blow. The killer blow comes from the borders. In the late 90s, the floodgates open. Cheap smuggled textile materials from China and India start pouring into Nigeria. These fabrics are colourful, they are flashy, and most importantly, they are dirt cheap. How cheap? They are selling for less than the cost of the cotton Dangote is buying to make his own cloth. It's simple economics. If a yard of Chinese lace costs N200 and a yard of Dangote fabric costs N500 just to break even, what is the average Nigerian mother in Balogun Market going to buy? She doesn't care about made in Nigeria. She cares about her pocket. The warehouses start filling up with unsold inventory. The loom starts slowing down. The silence begins to creep in. Dangote fights. He lobbies. He tries to push for bans on imports. But the smugglers are faster, and the borders are porous. The Nigerian Customs Service? Well, let's just say money speaks a universal language, and the smugglers were fluent. By the late 90s, the writing is on the wall. The business is bleeding cash. It's hemorrhaging money. Now this is where you see the cold, calculating ruthlessness that makes a billionaire. A sentimental man would have kept the factory open to save jobs. A politician would have kept it open for optics. Dangote is neither. He is a capitalist. He looks at the numbers, he sees the red ink, and he pulls the plug. In a move that shook the manufacturing sector, Dangote shuts down the textile operations. 6,400 workers. Let that number sink in. Imagine a stadium filled with 6,000 people. Men, women, fathers, breadwinners. In the blink of an eye, they are jobless. The Kano factory, once a symbol of northern industrial might, becomes a ghost town. The machines go silent. The dust settles on the looms. It was a massacre. But for Dangote, it was a lesson. It was the moment he learned the most important rule of doing business in Nigeria. Do not compete in a market you cannot control. He realised that in the textile game, he was at the mercy of smugglers and global commodity prices. He couldn't control the cotton supply, he couldn't control the borders, and he couldn't control the power. So he left. He took his losses, fired the staff, and pivoted. He swore he would never again enter a business where he didn't have an unfair advantage. The shutdown of the textile mills is often forgotten today because of his success in cement. But if you go to Kano, the older generation remembers, they remember the day the gates closed. By the way, if you're enjoying this dive into the business graveyards of the elite, do me a favour, smash that like button. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you like smart, slightly depressing business stories, and if you know anyone who worked in those textile mills back in the day, let me know in the comments. I want to hear the stories from the ground. 2. Dangote Airlines, the flight that never took off. Now let's move from the factories of Kano to the skies above Lagos. The year is roughly 2010. We are in the golden age of Nigerian aviation vanity projects. Every billionaire wants an airline. It's the ultimate status symbol. You have Arik Air, you have aero contractors, you have billionaire Jimo Ibrahim buying Virgin Nigeria and turning it into Air Nigeria, which is a whole other disaster story. Aliko Dangote looks at this and thinks, why not? He's the richest man in Africa. He flies private everywhere. He knows the pain of waiting for a commercial flight in a hot terminal in Abuja. He sees an opportunity. Enter Dangote Airlines. This wasn't just a rumour. This was a registered plan. The idea was to revolutionize domestic travel. Dangote wanted to bring the same efficiency he brought to cement logistics into aviation. He wanted punctual flights, clean planes, and actual customer service, concepts that were, and honestly still are, alien to Nigerian aviation. The plan was ambitious. He wasn't just going to buy 1 or 2 planes, he wanted a fleet. He wanted to dominate the Abuja-Lagos Port Harcourt triangle. The media went wild. Dangote is coming to save us, headlines screamed. People were ready to throw away their Arik loyalty cards, not that they had any loyalty to begin with. But then, nothing happened. Months passed, then years. We saw the registration documents. We heard the whispers in the corridors of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, but we never saw a plane painted with the Dangote logo on the runway. So, what happened? Why did the man who built a refinery in a swamp fail to launch a simple airline? 2 words, smart cowardice. And I mean that as a compliment. Dangote did his due diligence. He looked at the aviation sector in Nigeria and he saw a black hole. Let's break down the economics of a Nigerian airline for a second. It is a nightmare designed to bankrupt you. Fuel. Jet A1 fuel is imported, ironically, until his refinery started working. The price fluctuates wildly. Maintenance. You have to fly your planes to Europe or Ethiopia for C checks, because there are no certified maintenance hangars in Nigeria. That costs dollars. Currency. You sell tickets in Naira, which is constantly losing value, but you pay for your planes, parts, pilots, and maintenance in dollars. Infrastructure. The runways have potholes. The airport lights don't work at night, meaning you can't fly 24 hours. The baggage handling systems break down. Dangote looked at this mess. He looked at his fellow billionaires like Jimo Ibrahim, who was currently driving Air Nigeria into the ground. He looked at the owners of Arik, who were drowning in debt to Amcon, Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria. He realised that unlike cement, where he owned the limestone mines, or salt, where he owned the raw material, in aviation he owned nothing. He would be a slave to the fluctuating oil prices and the incompetence of the aviation authorities. He remembered the lesson from the textile failure. Don't play a game you can't rig in your favour. So, Dangote Airlines died quietly. It didn't crash because it never took off. He silently withdrew the plans. He let the license gather dust. It's listed as one of his failed startup ideas, but in reality it was a bullet dodged. If he had launched that airline, he would likely be dealing with the same mess that killed Medview, Chanchangi, Bellevue, and Sosoliso. Instead, he bought himself a $45 million Bombardier Global Express XRS private jet for his personal use, and said, "Let the rest of you fight over the economy seats. It's a failure of ambition, sure. He promised us an airline and didn't deliver. But from a business perspective, it was the smartest shutdown he ever pulled. But the next one? The next failure on our list? This one wasn't a dodge. This one was a muddy, messy, tomato paste-covered disaster that is still haunting him to this day. 3. Dangote Tomato Processing Plant, the Zombie Factory. Now, I want you to imagine a horror movie, but instead of zombies eating brains, imagine millions of moths eating money. The year is 2016. Aliko Dangote has just unveiled his latest masterpiece in Kano, the Dangote Tomato Processing Plant. This isn't just a factory. It is a $20 million behemoth. It is the largest of its kind in Africa. The goal? To stop Nigeria's addiction to imported tomato paste from China. The logic is flawless. Nigeria produces huge amounts of tomatoes, but 50% of them rot on the farm because there is no storage. Dangote says, "I will build a factory, buy the tomatoes from the farmers, turn them into paste, and we all get rich." On paper, it is the perfect business. In reality, it turned into a nightmare. Within months of opening, the factory shuts down. Why? The tomato Ebola. I am not making that name up. A moth called Tuta absoluta, which sounds like a spell from Harry Potter, invades northern Nigeria. This pest doesn't just eat the tomato leaves, it destroys the fruit entirely. It wipes out 80% of the harvest in Kaduna and Kano. Suddenly, there are no tomatoes to process. The $20 million factory is sitting there, silent, gathering dust. The workers are sent home, the machines are turned off. But that's not the craziest part. The pests eventually go away, right? So the factory should reopen. It does. And then it shuts down again. You see, Dangote ran into a problem he couldn't bully his way out of. The Nigerian farmer. Here is the trap. When the harvest is good, tomato prices crash. Farmers are desperate to sell. Dangote's factory is happy to buy at a low fixed price. But when the harvest is slightly bad, or it's the off-season, the price of fresh tomatoes in the open market skyrockets. A basket of tomatoes that sold for N500 suddenly sells for N5,000 in Mile 12 Market in Lagos. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a Kano farmer. You have a contract with Dangote to sell at N1000. But a trader from Lagos is standing at your farm gate offering you N4000 cash. What do? You sell to the trader. The Dangote factory was left starved of raw materials. They needed 1,200 tons of tomatoes per day to make sense. They were getting barely 20% of that. The factory became a zombie, alive but dead. Open for a few weeks, shut down for a few months. It's a brutal lesson in supply chain management. You can build the biggest factory in the world, but if you can't trust the guy growing the crop, you own a very expensive museum. To this day, the factory struggles. It is the one asset in his portfolio that refuses to obey his command. Speaking of food, have you ever eaten a meal that you knew was a mistake halfway through? That's basically what happened with our next entry. If you're loving these business war stories, check the link in the description for my deep dive into the cement wars, and don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to hit 100k before Dangote buys YouTube. 4. Dangote Noodles, the surrender to the king. If you grew up in Nigeria in the last 20 years, you know that noodles has another name. We don't say I want to eat noodles, we say I want to eat Indomie. Indomie, owned by Dufil Prima Foods, is not just a brand, it is a religion. They have 70% of the market. They raise generations of children. But Aliko Dangote looked at Indomie and said, I can take them. He launched Dangote Noodles. The strategy was classic Dangote. Undercut the price, flood the market, and use his massive distribution network to push the product into every corner shop in the country. He built factories in Ikorodu and Calabar. He pumped money into marketing. And for a while, you saw it everywhere. The red and white packaging, the aggressive ads. But there was a problem. The taste. You can force a product into the market, but you can't force people to love it. Nigerians are very specific about their noodles. Indomie had perfected that specific MSG-laden chicken flavour that hits the soul. Dangote Noodles. The reviews were mixed. Some said it was too soggy. Some said the spice packet was off. It was okay, but it wasn't Indomie. Dangote fought this war for years. He bled money. He realised that to beat Indomie, he would have to spend billions on marketing just to steal a tiny slice of the market share. He was fighting a brand that had become a generic trademark. It's like trying to launch a new search engine to beat Google. Good luck. So, in 2017, Dangote did something rare. He surrendered. He didn't just close the factory, he sold the entire business to the enemy. He sold 2 production lines and the entire Dangote Noodles brand to Dufil Prima Foods, the makers of Indomie, for roughly 3.7 billion naira. The terms of the deal were humiliatingly brilliant. He literally gave Indomie the right to use the Dangote brand name for 2 years to transition the customers. Imagine Apple selling the iPhone to Samsung and letting Samsung keep the Apple logo for 2 years. It was a total capitulation. Why did he do it? Because Dangote knows the sunk cost fallacy. He knew he had lost. Instead of throwing more good money after bad, he took the check, handed over the keys, and walked away. He realised that while he is the king of cement in the noodle kingdom, he was just a peasant. But if you think selling a business to your competitor is wild, wait until you hear the story of the business he sold for millions, bought back for $1, and then sold again for a fortune. The final entry on our list is the greatest corporate heist in Nigerian history. 5. Dangote Flour Mills, the greatest corporate heist in history. If you forget everything else in this video, remember this story. This is the Mona Lisa of business deals. This is the moment Aliko Dangote stopped playing checkers and started playing 4D chess while everyone else was still reading the rulebook. The year is 2012. Dangote has a flour milling business. It's doing okay, but the market is tough. Margins are thin. So he decides to sell a 63% stake in Dangote Flour Mills to a South African giant called Tiger Brands. Tiger Brands is huge. They are the biggest food producer in South Africa. They come into Nigeria with their chests puffed out, ready to show these local players how real corporate business is done. They pay Dangote roughly $200 million for the majority stake. Dangote takes the $200 million, smiles and steps aside. But then, reality hits Tiger Brands in the face. They realise that running a business in Johannesburg is very different from running a business in Apapa. They struggle with the traffic. They struggle with the currency devaluation. They struggle with the fierce competition. They start bleeding money. Fast. We're talking about losses so bad that the shareholders in South Africa are screaming for heads to roll. By 2015, just 3 years later, Tiger Brands is desperate. They want out. They don't care about profit anymore. They just want to stop the bleeding. They are looking for a buyer, but nobody wants to touch a company that is losing billions of naira. Nobody except Aliko Dangote. He approaches them and makes an offer, and this offer is so disrespectful. It's legendary. He offers to buy back the entire 65% stake for $1, not $1 million, $1 single dollar. Now you might be thinking, there's no way they accepted that. Oh, but they did. They were so desperate to leave Nigeria that they agreed to sell the company back to him for a nominal fee of $1. provided Dangote injected some cash to keep the company solvent and they, Tiger Brands, wrote off the debts. So, let's recap the score so far. 1. Dangote sells company for $200 million. 2. Dangote keeps the $200 million. 3. Dangote buys the same company back for $1. He essentially got an interest-free loan of $200 million and got his company back for free. But wait, it gets better. The story doesn't end there. Dangote takes the company back. He rebrands it. He fixes the operations because he understands the Nigerian market better than any foreigner ever could. He nurses the business back to health. Then, in 2019, another foreign giant comes knocking. This time, it's Olam International, a Singaporean agribusiness titan. They want to buy Dangote flour mills. Dangote says, "Sure, I'm open to selling." He sells the company to Olam for 361 million, 130 billion naira. Let's look at the final math. Sale. 1. $200 million buyback, $1 sale. 2. $361 million total. Gross gain, over $560 million from the same asset. He sold the same cow twice, and in between the sales he got the cow back for free. This isn't just business, it's wizardry. While Tiger Brands went back to South Africa to lick their wounds and explain to their investors why they lost millions, Dangote walked away with $500 million to pump into his refinery. It is the ultimate proof that in the jungle of Nigerian business, Dangote is the apex predator. Final thoughts, the survivor's touch. So what have we learned today? We've seen textile mills that turned into ghost towns. We've seen an airline that never flew. We've seen tomato factories defeated by moths and noodle brands that surrendered to the enemy. It's easy to look at Aliko Dangote and just see the wins, the cement, the sugar, the refinery. But the truth is, his empire is built on a mountain of mistakes. He didn't get to where he is because he never failed. He got there because when he failed smart. When the textiles stopped making money, he cut his losses instantly. When the airline looked risky, he didn't let his ego force it to fly. When the Noodles couldn't beat Indomie, he sold the weapon to the enemy. And when the flour mill tanked, he turned it into the greatest flip in history. The lesson for you, whether you're starting a YouTube channel, a dropshipping store, or a tech startup, is this. Don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with the profit. If a business is dead, bury it. If a strategy isn't working, change it. And if you ever sell a company for $200 million, always keep $1 in your pocket, just in case you need to buy it back. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the failures of the rich and powerful, you need to watch our other videos on this channel. And hey, if you're a former employee of Dangote Textiles or Dangote Noodles, I really want to hear your side of the story. Drop a comment below, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.